Okay guys, you saw the final result at the beginning of the video. Before we start, I'd like to mention that we now have a community Discord and Patreon. The links to those can be found in the description below. Also, I just want to mention that this is going to be a 3-part tutorial series, so make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with the channel. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Up on the screen right now is the video that we actually recorded for this. You'll notice I have some tracking markers, and I just did that by making some dots on some paper and cutting them out like that. And then with Google Street View app, I actually made a 360 photo to act as our reflection map that we'll use later. If you want a tutorial about that, I'll be making that soon, so make sure you like and subscribe. But let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first I'm going to come over here and change it to cycles. I'm also going to render on the GPU and then change viewport denoising and adaptive sampling on. I'm also going to come over here to performance and change the tile size to 512 by 512. This is because I'm rendering on a GPU. If you're rendering on a CPU, I recommend 64 by 64. Next, I'm going to come up to the film tab, make sure that transparent is turned on, and then in the output properties, we're going to go ahead and change the frame rate to 29.97. That's the frame rate of my video. Okay, next let's actually import the video clip into Blender itself. We're going to go up to the movie clip editor, and then we're going to go ahead and open the clip. If you want to download these clips, these are in the description below. Okay, with the clip open itself, you'll notice that the colors are kind of off, and so we can go into the render properties, all the way down into color management. We're actually going to change this to standard for this part. And then we're going to come up here and hit the set scene frames and also prefetch. With that now done, we're actually going to switch over to the motion tracking tab. We're going to come up here, hit this little plus icon, go to VFX, and then we're going to go to motion tracking, and this opens a new scene. So let's go ahead and get that clip back here again, and you'll notice that it's kind of similar. It's again the movie clip editor right here, but you also have this window down here and kind of these windows up here. We don't really need to worry about these right now, so I'm just going to pull these up. The only things we need to worry about is this big window and the smaller timeline window down here. And so we can actually see our tracking markers right here. We're going to go ahead and come up to the pattern size. I'm going to change that up a bit. And then we can leave all of these the same, except we want to hit normalize. In the tracking settings extra, we want to make sure that the correlation is set to a 0.9, like this. Now we can hold control and click on all of our tracking markers. We're just going to make sure that we're on the first frame down at the bottom right there. And so just click on all these markers like this. Once we have them all aligned, we're just going to press the A button to select all of them and then hold Control and T to track the scene. Okay, so it just finished tracking. You'll notice down here that we actually see some green and red lines. I won't really talk about that too much. That'll be for a later tutorial. But basically, you just want to make sure that no individual green line goes crazily above or below the others. So all of these look fine right now. We will notice if we go throughout the scene, a lot of markers lose their tracking here. And so instead of adjusting that, I can, since the clip is already long enough, I'm just going to go ahead and set the in frame to be 190 so we don't really have to deal with those markers. Okay, with that set up now, we're actually going to start to solve the error of the actual track. So we're going to hit this solve tab over here, and then we're going to hit this refine button, do focal length K1, K2, like that. And then we're going to come through our clip and see the area where the camera kind of changes the most, and set that to our A and B keyframe up there. And so I'm coming throughout the clip. I think right here, I'm going to say 78 to 100 is going to be what I select. So again, just come up to the A and B and select that kind of keyframe. And then once we have that set up, we can actually hit this solve camera motion button. With that set up, we can see our solve error up here, which is a 0.14. That is actually really good. You want to keep that as low as possible. I recommend below a 0.3 if you can. And so now with that set up, we can actually drag these windows back down here because we will need these now. We don't really need this side one, so I'm just going to drag that over. We just want to see this kind of 3D viewport. Now we're going to come over here, scroll all the way down on this side menu, and then we're going to set up a tracking scene. And you can see that it sets some markers and everything. But if we go ahead and play it, we'll notice that it's not really orientated on the screen that well. It's not really following like we want it to. And so to fix that, we're going to come to a middle point right here. Go ahead and set the origin like that. You'll notice that the box has now jumped to our point right there, but it's a little too big. And so change that, I'm going to select 2 of these points and hit set scale over here. It's still not the way I want it, so I'm going to increase that. Let's try a 2.5 and then set the scale again. That looks much better. we're also going to quickly set up the floor, and so I'm going to select 3 of these points just at random, and then come over here and select the floor, and you'll notice that it's more on the floor now, but it's not really orientated how we want it. And so I'm going to select one of these, hit the y-axis. That's not really how I want it either. Just kind of play around and try to get a good point like this. I set it as my y-axis, just trying to follow the table as well as we can. It doesn't really matter, but it's just personal preference. So now if we come to the start and actually play the clip, we'll notice that the actual plane is on the actual table itself. It's not perfectly aligned over here, but really it doesn't matter for this scene in particular. But now we are ready to actually make some objects in our scene, and so we're going to come back to this layout tab right here, go back into the 3D viewport like that. Going to go ahead and delete this light right here. We won't really need that. And so coming over into the camera by hitting 0 on your numpad, we can actually see the layers that it created. First, we're going to delete this cube object. We don't really need that. And you can see that with the setup tracking scene, we have a new background collection. We're going to go ahead and delete that since we're not going to be really working with that, and pull the ground into the foreground collection. Also up here, we have a new view layer, and so the background view layer, we're also going to delete that. And so now we just have one single view layer and one single collection. Okay, so now let's do some actual modeling. I'm going to import a reference image. So if I hit F3 and then type in reference image, you should see that a load reference image pops up. I'm going to go, I downloaded a picture off of the internet of this, and so we're just going to come over here. You got to make sure that your camera is orientated based on where you want that. So again, I'm just going to load this up right here, and we should see that it's on the side right now. Okay, now I'm going to bring this up in the camera. I kind of want it to go up like that, maybe a little bit bigger. Just trying to get the right size for the actual wine glass itself. Maybe a tad bit bigger. Like that. That is looking good. And then I'm going to move it where I want it in the actual scene itself, and then maybe rotate it like that. So now that we have this reference image in, we can actually come to the side view like this and start to model the actual wine glass. And so to do that, we're just going to do some basic modeling. I'm not going to really explain too much what I'm doing, but I'll try to work you guys through it as much as I can. So we're going to go ahead and Shift A to add a mesh and then cylinder like this. Kind of just position that along the bottom right here. Along with the bottom of the wine glass, and then we're going to come up here into the X-ray for the solid view, just so we can view it a little bit better. And then if we hit tab, we can go ahead and go into edit mode. I'm going to hit 2 to go into edge select, and then holding Alt and selecting the top here, we can hit G and then Z to bring this down, and then basically we're just going to hit E, extrude it up, and then S to move it in. Basically we're just going to keep doing that, following the rough outline right here. Again, just E, let go, S to scale, and like that. You just want to keep doing that all the way up the wine glass. Make as many extrusions as you would like. Once you get up here, you'll probably need to make a little bit more, like so. Okay, so now that we have the basic shape of it out, we can actually come up here and go back into the X-ray mode. Then we're going to select 3 to go to face select mode, and then we're going to go ahead and delete this top face right here, like so. So now you'll notice that the glass itself is actually pretty low poly, and so a way to fix that is to come over here and then add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm just going to crank this up to 3 on both the render and viewport. You can still notice that some are visible, and so we're just going to right click and shade smooth to get rid of that. Make sure that it's selected and shade smooth like that. And so now it's a much higher poly count. We don't have to apply this at all. It'll stay like this and be rendered like this. We will notice that at the bottom you might have some issues with the edges and stuff, and so to fix that we can actually hold Control R to add a loop cut, and then we're just going to move that to the outside. And also the bottom, if I go ahead and select this and hit H, and also the reference image and hit H, we can now see the bottom is kind of messed up as well, and so we're just going to go back into edit mode. Again, hit 3 to go into face select, select this face, and instead of hitting Control R, we're going to hit I to inset, and just do that a couple of times like that, and that has fixed it. So now we have the basic shape of the actual wine glass, but you'll notice it's very thin. And so a way to change this is to actually add another modifier. And this time we're going to make the Solidify modifier. And you can see that adds a little bit of thickness to it. I'm just going to add a little bit more, and you can kind of see on the edges it's a little more thick now. And so now if we come to the camera view, we can actually see where the glass is going to be in the actual scene. I'm just going to hit G, then Shift Z to only move it on the X and Y axis, and then move it wherever I want it. Now we do want to make sure that this is actually on the plane itself, and so we're going to hit Alt H to unhide everything. We can actually go ahead and get rid of this reference image just by deleting that. Also make sure the cylinder is on the foreground. It doesn't really matter, but it's just nice practice too. But let's go to the side view, and we'll notice if we go into wireframe that the plane is right here and the glass is actually not sitting on it. So whenever you move around the glass, you just want to make sure that it is resting on the plane like that. Okay, one final step that we're going to do is to select this plane right here, and then we're just going to scale that up a bit just to get all the shadows that we're going to do in part 2. And so now if we go into the rendered view, we can actually see that the ground plane is set to be a shadow catcher. So if we come to the object properties, the visibility, we should see that it's a shadow catcher. We'll play around with all these settings later in the next tutorial. But for now, this is all we need. And so that's actually it for part 1. We just wanted to actually track the motion of the camera and then create our objects in the scene. I'm going to go ahead and hide the plane just so we can see the actual motion of the cup. But if we go ahead and play it, we can see that the glass actually does move around according to the camera motion, and it is looking pretty good. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this part of the tutorial. If you are interested in photorealism, make sure you like and subscribe for parts 2 and 3 coming up. But anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.